Good deal.
Jason, talking about having had shots, is there, as we think about bringing the economy back, et cetera, are there thoughts about when we might be targeting meeting in person again?
You know, Gary, we're starting to have that conversation at the board level, and we'll meet next week. And that will be on the agenda to talk about. A key driver, of course, is the church, and you may have some insight as a church.
Well, I would share with you our church financial administrator, who has done a marvelous job of all of that and represented us to all of the different folks that used our church, passed away 2 weeks ago. So it wasn't COVID, but she, after some surgery, that was very difficult. And so I'm not sure exactly who will be handling that, but I'll be happy to carry the ball and try to make that happen as soon as you feel like you're ready.
Well, great. I see Bill joined. I think he was going to be reaching out to somebody in the last. Have you made that outreach to the church, Bill?
No, I have not. So I just got on here, and my signal to Gary was cutting a little bit in and out. Gary, did you say that Debbie had been out ill?
Yes, Debbie passed away 2 weeks ago, Bill. She had some real serious surgery, and just it didn't work out. So
oh my goodness.
So we just lost her, and we're not sure exactly how we're going to take care of that part of the business. But I was volunteering that I will, as a church volunteer, I'll try to carry the ball as far as reopening whenever we're in that mode.
So we're just kind of tag teaming it right now up in the office?
Yeah, a little bit. Volunteers, extra volunteers, and our one staff person is probably going to be doing extra duty for a while anyway. She's part-time. She'll probably be closer to full-time for a while. So.
Wow.
Well,
okay.
Gary or Bill, if either of you can find anything out before Thursday about the church's timeline, that'd be very helpful.
That's next Thursday?
But yeah, but
board meeting then? Okay, I'll see what I can.
Gary, I'll defer to Gary on that, Jason, because my contact up there was really Debbie. Okay. You know, Gary probably has a better relationship with Ginger, the pastor, or, you know, somebody else. I know a number of the ladies that work in the office, but they're basically just volunteer staff help, and probably are not at the level of authority to give us the answer that we would be seeking.
I'll push it and see where we are on that, because I've raised that issue before, and I'll raise it again, and we'll kind of see where we are given the movement in the economy a little bit to try to open things up. I'll see what I can do. I'll get you an answer by Thursday. The answer may be we don't know yet, but I'll try to get you the best answer I can.
I'm really sorry to hear that. That's a low blow today to hear about Debbie.
I'm sorry. She's a wonderful person and a dear friend, and it's a big loss. But
Well, thank you, Gary and Bill.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are at 12 o'clock. Great to see everybody, and appreciate you being here today. Another interesting program coming up from Dr. Powderly, and appreciate her being with us. And we're going to also at the end, as I mentioned to some earlier, we're going to talk about the Fort Worth Design Survey. I'm sorry, I'm getting the name incorrect, but stay tuned for that. We're all going to learn something about what that process is and how we can contribute. So we're gonna kick it off. Gina Bibbins, Councilwoman Bibbins, is going to bring us the prayer and the pledge. Mike Shedd will follow that with our announcements, and then Don will introduce our speaker. And Charles Hodges is handling the all-important Mexican Inn gift card door prizes. So
you did a great job on that.
I trust him. I don't know if I trust him on that deal.
No, he did a great job with it last month.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, well, we'll continue to evaluate his performance. So, so wonderful to see everybody. we're going to go ahead and jump in. I'll ask you if you're not speaking to go ahead and mute your line, and we'll turn it over to Gina.
Thank you, Jason, and good afternoon, everyone. If you would, please bow your heads and join me. Heavenly Father, we come to you today thanking you for the very purpose and presence of the East Fort Worth Business Association. We pray your blessing over our unified efforts to speak up for the advancement, development, and improvement of the infrastructure on the east side of Fort Worth. Please bless our efforts to attract new businesses to come to East Fort Worth as you guide us all to support the businesses who have already invested so much in our community. I pray you expand the territory of all members of this association, especially the business owners, to help them continue to stand during these challenging times. That is my prayer. Amen. Now, if you would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. We live in a great country. If Jungus Jordan were with me, he would tell you that. And now I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gina. Mike Shedd.
For announcements, we do have I guess Linda Fulmer is going to tell us, or I guess tell us about a mayoral candidates forum that's coming up in April. I don't know if the exact date has been set. I think I had it as the 18th, but I'm not sure if that's right. But
no, it'll be April 1st during our regular meeting time. We will have extend the meeting an additional 30 minutes. There are 11 declared candidates for mayor. We sent them each a question to respond to in writing. The deadline for response is tomorrow at 5 p.m. People who do not submit the written response will not be allowed to participate. They all said verbally that they wanted to participate, but their ticket to participating is getting the written response to me. I received 3 written responses so far. I suspect that at 5 o'clock tomorrow, I'll get a deluge because that's also the deadline for the city council candidates. Likewise, there will be a city council candidates forum on Monday, April the 5th, starting at 6:30 p.m., also on Zoom.
okay, we also have an announcement regarding our membership dues. I think some invoices have gone out, and Angela, are you going to talk about those due dates for the dues?
No, Mike, I'm not seeing Angela on my
screen. Okay, so it looks like our 2020 dues are covering 2021. So if you paid your $75 dues in 2021, those are rolling over. And if not, the 2021 dues are due now for those that are interested. And I guess since we're still not meeting in person, we don't have an option for paying for the year of lunches. Hopefully we'll get back in person soon. And I don't think I have any other announcements that were sent to me. I did put an article in the paper regarding Mayor Price's endorsement of one of our candidates, so you can read that at your leisure. But I don't have any other announcements.
Thank you, Mike. I'm not seeing any hands raising with additional announcements. Great. Well, thank you, Mike. And now the moment we've all been waiting for, Don.
Thank you very much, President Jason. I think that we're all concerned with not only our own health, but the thing that I think has bothered most of us is the impact that this has had on our children. We've all heard so many stories, and we need to find out from the experts exactly what has happened and what is happening with our children as a result of COVID. It's been a struggle for all of us, but we are very fortunate to have Dr. Kathleen Powderly, a 15-year veteran, a pediatrician at Cook's Children, to join us today. to share with us thoughts and ideas. Dr. Powderly is from the area. She did her undergraduate work at UTD and graduated from medical school in Houston. Again, we're very fortunate. Dr. Powderly, thank you so much for joining us today, and I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for inviting me to come to speak with you. Just to give you a little bit more history about myself, I am originally actually from El Paso. My dad was in the military, and I came here for college and then went to medical school in Houston, did residency in Austin, and then came back up here to Fort Worth in 2002, where I worked as a hospitalist at Cook's for 15 years. That in that role, admitted all of the sick kids that needed to get admitted that didn't need to go to the ICU. And then a few years ago, I decided to go ahead and transition to primary care, which I am still with a Cook's clinic. The few different things I have kind of done just in my volunteer life is I'm a facilitator for Stewards of Children, which is the child sexual abuse prevention program. I speak to families and PTAs and different organizations about adolescent mental health. And I am the president of Fort Worth Spark, the nonprofit group that Toby Jackson's the CEO of. And so I've done a lot in the community. I'm married. My husband was a teacher, a high school teacher. He turned to a stay-at-home dad. And I have a son that, heaven help me, is going to be a senior this next year at Pascal High School. So it's been a whirlwind of a year for me professionally and personally, and having a kiddo having to go kind of through this with COVID as well. But I wanted to kind of talk with you, whenever I talk about impact on children, really kind of with anything, I always talk about it in 5 different areas. One is health, one is safety, one is nutrition, one is housing, and one is education. Because those are, I think, the 5 core things that we need to have a successful child. And if you are lacking in one of those big areas, that's going to be very impactful, maybe not to the child at that moment, but to the child going forward. So to kind of give you an idea of COVID in children, this morning I was looking at the Tarrant County COVID site, which I probably look at multiple times a day, just to kind of give you just kind of a numbers to see impact. That the number of cases in kids less than 15 is probably about 11% of the cases that we see of COVID. And for kids 15 to 24, because they don't put it like 15 to 18, which would be more helpful for me, is about 17%. And the mortality rate, they don't even separate out like 0 to 15. It's just 0 to 44 because it's a small percentile, is about 4%. And the number of hospitalized kids from 0 to 24 would represent about 5% of all cases. And I will tell you, in following all of our hospitalized numbers at Cook's, the majority of those kids that get admitted are admitted for other reasons, and then they happen to be positive for COVID. Like for instance, last week when I was looking at our numbers, of the 7 kids that were on our COVID unit, 4 of them were actually admitted because of a suicide attempt, but they happened to be COVID positive at the same time. So they got put on the COVID unit because they were positive, but that truly wasn't the reason why they were there. And I think in children, we probably see that much more than in adults. So the first kind of concept that I'd like to talk about is health. And I separated it out into 2 aspects, physical and mental health. And what have I seen really over the last year as a pediatrician? Well, the concern in physical health that I've seen is based on accessing care, and in some ways of our limit of accessing care for families. So what do I mean by that? Well, trying to get people back to go to their preventative health care visits was a real challenge at the beginning. And for as a pediatrician, really getting those kids in 0 to age 4 in was so important, not only to assess their health and development, but also for vaccinations. Our biggest fear is that we were going to have an outbreak of whooping cough because we weren't having kids come in to get vaccinated. Then, and you know, this is a policy that I've struggled with my own big organization, is the fact, because I think it limits people who are not in households with two parents where one parent does not work, is the fact that we are not supposed to allow families to come in to the clinic visit with their other kids other than the child who's ill. We can't even send them over to go get labs if they have COVID, if they're sick, if they have the other kids with them, or x-rays. Now you can only imagine that for, you know, a single working mom who has 3 kids, how difficult this would be to go to a preventative health care visit, because they would have to find care. And so those are some of the things that I think that a lot of families have struggled with in accessing care for their children, is that because of all of these COVID restrictions that we've placed on, it really does limit the access of care for several of these families who do not have resources. The other issue that I've seen just a really increase in is our level of obesity. And that, I think, stems from 2 things. There was a lot of families who, because their child fell into high BMIs or were noted to be obese, that kept their children home at risk for, as one of the complications of getting COVID, being in that high risk group. The problem is that they didn't have the ability to do lots of things. They weren't even walking around schools. And so their obesity just increased. And so we shut down lots of parks. We shut down a lot of things to do. So now they are physically worse off than they were. And we're going to have to manage that and those complications going forward. The next aspect would be the mental health. And that has just been, that as a pediatrician has probably been the most devastating thing I think I've seen over this year. And I am one who, I saw a lot of mental health problems with mental health increase in adolescents over the last few years. As I said, I go out and I speak on this issue to lots of different organizations and programs, but it has been phenomenal. The amount that has increased over nationally of anxiety, depression, suicide attempts, and suicide has been particularly stark. To kind of give you an idea of what our community is dealing with, last year, Cooks admitted 294 kids with a suicide attempt. Now, to kind of put this in framework, you go to the emergency room because you attempted suicide. If there is another hospital available to you and you are older than 12, then you get sent to that hospital, and it is not included in this number. This number only includes children who are admitted to our inpatient psych or to our general hospitalist program, because there's no beds available in the community. Now, if you add on that you're positive for COVID, those hospitals won't take you for 2 weeks. So now you're in the general hospital seeing a clinical therapist for the 2 weeks that you're there. To give you a frame of reference, the year before, we had about 270 kids admitted with a suicide attempt. In January of this year, 1 month, we admitted 40 kids with a suicide attempt. That was double the amount of last year that we had. In February, we admitted 35. So right now, within 2 months of 2021, Cooks has admitted about 25% of the volume that they already had admitted last year for kids with a suicide attempt. I'm not even talking about the kids that are struggling and come and see me. I have put more kids on antidepressants and I'm managing them in terms of therapy because all of the therapists are all filled up and we don't have as many resources. That doesn't include the people who don't even have a doctor, or the people who have a doctor but who, because of the stigma of mental health, are not accessing care. And so this is a huge problem that we have now and that we are going to face going forward. Because once a child kind of goes down this road and they have a suicide attempt, that's a lifelong impact that they are going to have. And one that as a community, we are really going to have to deal with, because these kids, as they're suffering through their anxiety and depression, they are really struggling with all of the other aspects of health and education in their lives that we'll get into later. So the next aspect that I want to talk about is safety. The number of cases of reported child abuse has significantly declined during the pandemic. The number of ER visits for kids who have been abused has significantly declined. The scary part about this is the number of admissions overall to a hospital for severe abuse has stayed the same. So, severely abused kids are accessing care because they have a traumatic injury, and that is occurring at the same rate. But we are definitely not getting the number of reports of child abuse. That likely is because teachers are typically the #1 reporters of all abuse, followed secondly by medical professionals. So if kids are not in school, if kids are not accessing health care, then their abuse is not getting reported. And unfortunately, we don't want to think about it, but in families where abuse is occurring, that this has provided an opportunity for perpetrators to not allow children to access other adults. And this is going to be very impactful in terms of all of the secondary side effects that we see, including, increased ACE scores, increases in difficulty in physical and mental health of those kids who have been abused. That those are all things as a community that are going to be impactful here as the years go on. The other issue with safety, and so the way, and I'm just going to use Fort Worth ISD because that is our school district, that's my school district that my son has gone to, in terms of how we dealt with adolescents. And some of this maybe you all know and some maybe you don't know, but we delayed school for a few weeks. Then we started school virtually for 4 weeks, so all of those kids were home. And then in October, the adolescents were able to do hybrid, so go some days and not other days. And then it was in December that they finally were able to go back in person if they wanted to full time. During all of this time, these kids who were in high school, for the most part, if you had a working parent, they were alone. And I don't know, I have a teenager and he does go off and do things by himself, but I try and keep pretty good tabs on him because I know they can get into trouble. And as a community and as schools, we know that that happens. That's why we want to watch them. But with COVID happening, we decided as kind of a group that that was an okay thing to do, was to allow kids that were in high school to be alone and be unsupervised. So the amount of vaping that I have seen in my practice, the incredible increase of teenage promiscuity, including so many kids meeting people on social media and having sexual encounters with them, significantly increased. The amount of drug use and the amount of urine drug screens that I have done significantly increased. And the amount of accidental overdoses, because kids are sad and they're upset and they're using medication to make themselves feel better and they're accidentally overdosing, has significantly increased as well. In talking about nutrition, the food access through schools has been limited. In free reduced lunch and being able to access those meals on a regular basis because you were already in school and didn't have to necessarily go to a school and come back and get it, has significantly increased food insecurity in our community. And then the quality of foods that a lot of these kids are eating is significantly reduced as well, because you're just trying to get some food into kids and we're not really looking at the quality. Again, contributing to the obesity issue that I spoke of earlier. Then talking about housing, the amount of, just given the economic instability and that so many of our families jobs related in the service industry, and that has significantly declined. The amount of homelessness or living with other family members has significantly increased as well. And then that can only add to the possibility of COVID exposures and increased COVID illnesses within big families. And crowding is a huge issue. My younger sister is a middle school teacher in Irving ISD. And one of the saddest things that she told me, and she was just in tears, was that she was doing virtual school in the fall with one of her students. And then that district, you know, they continue to encourage the kids to turn on their cameras. Turn on your camera, please, so I can see you. And she felt like the girl's camera was on. She's like, "Is your camera on?" She said, "Yes, miss, my camera is on." She's like, "But there's so many people that are in my house during the day that the only place I have quiet that I can do school is in the closet, and there's no light in here." And it just about broke her heart. But that is what is facing, you know, so many of our families. Now, when we talk about the educational impact of what has happened with COVID, this is going to be something that as the whole Fort Worth community, many communities, but in speaking of my own town, that is going to be something that we are going to have to reckon with for quite a bit of time. You know, when the virtual learning started happening in Fort Worth ISD, I had family members that would come in and they were allotted one Chromebook per family because there was not enough. So the kids would have to take turns in getting live teaching from their teachers. And then the other time they had to do asynchronous learning, which was basically learning on your own later. And so that was if you were able, families were able to get that and had Wi-Fi and had opportunity to have a place to be able to learn. So that impact of virtual learning from last year into the beginning of this year was impactful, because when kids went back in elementary school and middle school, they're all allowed to go back. And a lot of people did go back. We're still having to deal with the fact that for a lot of kids that are still at home with this virtual learning, this is the environment that they're learning in. The second thing would be is for the high school students. By the time that happened and they were allowed to come back, the amount of kids that actually went back to high school was very low. To give you an idea, my son goes to Paschal. There's about 2,500 students at Paschal. His average class size, and he's in person every day, is 4 people. 4. Because it became so socially disconnected that people were like, I just can't go. Or now we have kids that are like, I'm going to go to this teacher because I like this teacher, but I'm not going to go to this class. Or I'm going to go get a job and I'll just do asynchronous learning because I can just log on. And if most of my assignments are just completion, then I can get a 70 and just get by. And so this is kind of the mindset that has evolved. So now what have we seen? We have seen these increase in failure rates, this increase in this high absenteeism. I cannot tell you, I get information probably once or twice a week about attendance recovery because so many kids are missing school. That quality of education as they go forward. And then my concern is the amount of the kids that will drop out because they're like, what's the point? It doesn't matter anymore. Or they're graduating early, and that's going to financially impact the district and the city. This will have compounding problems for our community at large. Number one, the lack of having a high school diploma, as you all know, could potentially really impact these kids, especially if they're not in programs that have any technical training. So now you have kids that have just decided that school is not important, because they feel the perception is no one else thinks it's important. They have lack of social engagement with one another. And where do you see these kids in 3 or 4 years? And how do we intervene? So there's a lot of different things we can do. I think that one of my focuses is that we can engage, we can go to school, we can do different things in our community and be safe about it in COVID. And that, unfortunately, I think is where everything has gotten wonky with this, right? Is that we can't say nothing and we can't say everything. Most solutions are gray and in between. And that's murky and it's difficult and not everybody's going to agree. But we need to really focus on getting our adolescents back to school, to say that they want to go back to school. And for those who cannot, really improving the virtual learning environment. We must do this. We must tell kids there is hope, because there is. And this is a small part, as I tell every child, that they're going to live to be like 80, and this is a tiny little sliver of their life. But if you were 8, this is an 1/8 of your life, and that's why it feels huge. If you were 16, it's a huge part of your life, because they haven't lived to be older like me, right? And know that, like, okay, there's a year that's not so great, and then you move on, right? This has been such a huge part of their life. So working to find ways to improve virtual schooling, working to get kids back, doing training for all adults on child abuse prevention, on suicide prevention is what's going to help us later when we're dealing with these deleterious effects. And having a good public health message regarding vaccinations, not just COVID, but all vaccinations, that we need to go forward and we need to vaccinate to keep our kids as healthy as we can. So I thank you for your time today, and I'm open to any questions if you all have them.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Powderly. I appreciate everything you've said, and there are several questions that we have. I think one of the first questions is, what do you see down the line in 2021, later this year in 2022? Do you think that there'll be longer lasting negative impacts, and how do we address those, or how can we help?
Yes, I think there's going to be a couple of different things that we're going to have to deal with that I think are probably most impactful. And that is going to be that kind of education slide that we have seen. So for instance, just to give you kind of an idea, and I'm going to only say it from my own personal life because I think it's easier to understand. My son was in 80-minute math, where you did Algebra 2 and pre-cal in 1 year. And right as he started pre-cal is when we went into lockdown in last March. Now, my husband was a high school math teacher, so he kind of helped him through the rest of that year. And then he started doing pre-cal. He was going to do pre-cal-cal. That's the next group thing that you do. But the virtual teaching was so poor in pre-cal that we got him through pre-cal, but opted not to have him take calculus this semester. Now, we are blessed because we have lots of resources, and he's almost done with all of his math that we can do that. But if you were a 7th or 8th grade student, that gap is going to be great. So I think supporting organizations that allow for educational enhancement this summer is going to be very important, whether it's reading or math. Those are probably going to be the 2 things that we need to focus on. So trying to fill the gap of that educational slide is going to be the most important. The second thing I think is going to be most important is addressing the mental health needs. Because even in kids who are not depressed or they're not anxious, they are sad and they're isolated. And I have learned more about people's pets and their scooters and their bicycles, because I am one, especially last summer, I was one of the only people they saw outside their house. And they just wanted to come and talk. So to have a good mentor, good mentors in the community to basically be able to talk with kids to not let them know that you're available. That's what most kids need, is they need somebody available that they can reach out to. So anything that we can support within schools and out of schools that can mentor children, I think is going to be incredibly impactful, just because we are not going to be able to increase the number of psychiatrists and psychologists. I mean, that just doesn't happen out of thin air. So what are we going to do? Well, we have to be there for the kids. So whether we get other organizations, teachers, police officers, firefighters, somewhere to kind of engage kids as the world opens up, that's what's going to help get us out of this.
Yeah, I think there was another comment that this also related to the financial viability of the families when the kids are having to stay at home and the parents miss work. That compounds the issue and raises a lot of other concerns about family interaction and et cetera. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think that, I think this is probably, and as a hospitalist, I saw a lot of terrible things. I mean, a lot of things done to children that I never thought possible that people could do to children. But this has by far been the saddest year that I have ever had as a physician. And we don't see kids really there are kids that die of COVID, but for the most part, thank God, kids have been fairly protected against severe disease. So thank God for that. But the impact socially, developmentally, and trying to reassure parents that they are doing the right thing by either sending their kid to school or not sending their kid to school, having to support them with working or not working, it has just been just horrific, I think, for so many families on so many levels. And, for those of us who are invested and have the ability, we are really going to have to invest in our communities coming out of this when the numbers go down and more people get vaccinated. On the flip side of this next school year, we are going to have to engage with our schools and our community programs.
Yeah. Dr. Powderly, we have always had the impression that children are resilient. We know they heal quicker than we do on injuries. Do you see any signs of children recovering, the resiliency of children coming out of the morass that we've been through?
Yes, I think so. You're right. So there's so many people told me a 3 and a 4-year-old won't wear a mask. That's what people told me. And I thought, you know what, the thing about 3 and 4-year-olds is that they're people pleasers. And for the most part, kids they don't want to be in trouble. And for the most part, kids follow rules. And so when it became a point where we said, you got to wear a mask, I have lots of 3 and 4-year-olds that wear a mask in my clinic. The majority of them do. We require anybody older than 2 to wear a mask, and we have figured out the way to do it. Now, kids are more flexible, and I think they are more resilient. But what allows for resiliency in children are adults who are able to be there to help pull them. So a child can experience, for instance, being sexually abused. The kids who don't report it and who never report it, statistics show have increased risks of so many health problems, mental health problems, and difficulty engaging in relationships and jobs as they get older. But if you have an intervention with those children by some adult who says, you know what, you're courageous, you're brave, and we're going to help protect you, those kids have much more resilience and have much more likelihood to go beyond what they are capable. But it takes a group of adults in the community to recognize that and to kind of give a hand out. And then that's why I'm saying is that I think kids are incredibly resilient. I think they can overcome so many different things. And some will do it on their own, right? Like there are some people that no matter what happens, they're going to be fine. The majority of people are not like that. They need a coalition kind of around them. And that's what we are as adults. Whether you're a small business owner, a pastor, a doctor, a teacher, we need to be that for that community of children, is to be there for them and to kind of pull them up to see, yeah, they can get past this.
Thank you so much. That is so powerful. Your comments on the resiliency and what we can do and how we can help the children. I think I'd like to kind of close out on what kind of resources have you been able to have to help you and your staff members through this crisis. Y'all, we bandy the word hero around all too often, but everyone concerned, particularly with children in this terrible crisis, I think is truly a hero. Do you all have the resources to help you get through this?
I will have to say, I've worked for cooks for, I guess 19 years now. And I've worked in so many different things, been on so many committees, and like any big organization, sometimes you get frustrated with how things function. But I will tell you, this organization really protected all of their employees. The first thing, when this first started, I think all of us were pretty much terrified every time we went to work, because all of those medical people were dying in New York. Even my son, I would come home and he'd say, "Mom, did you hear about that 45-year-old doctor that died?" And I just finally told him, "You can't tell me anymore," because it was almost overwhelming. We didn't have enough PPE. We didn't have information. It was pretty much terrifying. Then as we kind of got into this, and cooks always made sure we had PPE, even the times that I thought we're going to run out today. They found it somewhere. They got it for us. And they did an incredible job over the summer when all of our volume went down, of doing paycheck support for all members of their organization until things opened up and we got back. They also expanded out their employee assistance program, which allows for paid visits to therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. They have just been truly wonderful. When the vaccine became available, they made sure they were one of the first people to be able to vaccinate their employees. And then when they had extras available, allowed for their patients who were 16 and 17 to get vaccinated. And so as an organization, I just feel so blessed that when everything went terrible, cooks, they showed the leaders that they are in the community. And I don't know if I would have had the same experience if I was with a different organization or if I was in practice by myself. I think it would have been a lot worse. And so it really takes a village, and it takes all of us kind of working together to kind of support. I'm happy to report this is the first week we've been allowed not to count PPE because we have enough finally. It's been a year, but we finally have enough where we don't have to count. And so we've come kind of a long way in terms of what we've been able to do.
Great. Well, Dr. Powderly, thank you so much for all of your words and your expertise and sharing it with us today. And we wish you all the best, and I hope that the curve continues to get better and better and better. Again, like I said, we use the word hero, and I think you and all of your staff fellows are also heroes for everything that y'all do. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right. Well, thank you all for having me there.
Thank you, Dr. Powderly. Jason, back to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Don and Dr. Powderly. Wow. Someone with your experience and given all the things you've seen, and to see the weight of this past year on you and the stories that you tell, it really does put it in focus. So thank you for bringing that to us today. And the message of our role in resiliency for kids is something we all take to heart. Well, our bonus moment today is we have Rachel Albright, who's part of the group that's putting together the Community Vision Survey. As I shared a little bit earlier, I don't really know much about this, so I've invited Rachel to come share with us and give us some context for just a few minutes, and I promise we won't forget the door prizes, but to give us a sense of what this Community Vision Survey is about and why we want to participate. So with that, I bring you Rachel Albright, Project Director for the survey. Rachel?
Hi, Eastside Business Association. Thank you all so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here today. I am very briefly just going to go over a little bit of what community design is and who we are as a 501c3 that is working in Fort Worth, and then what our Community Vision Project is and how we hope that you all might be able to get involved. So when you think about community design, this is a nonprofit type that is really focused on creating an equitable built environment. We're focusing on the creation and management of environments for people, so built environments and goes through a process of promoting change from neighborhood to regional scales that is really participatory in decision making at all levels. So instead of having a developer come in and say, we believe that some apartments should go here, or a city group, we're really working with the neighborhood, we're working with the community, we're trying to involve the community as much as possible in how the built environment changes. I think we all are aware how important our neighborhood is and have become more aware during the pandemic whenever we're all really stuck at home. The importance of parks, green spaces, sidewalks. The last couple of weeks, public infrastructure has become very important. And so we are really looking for a way to hear from all of Fort Worth, a lofty goal for a small nonprofit, to really know what you all really love about your community, what you think could change or needs improvements, and any of your big ideas. If you're sitting there looking outside and you see an empty lot and you think, oh my gosh, what would be great is a community garden, we want to know about it. If you are really focused on how to bring in more sidewalks because your disabled friend really can't get around, we want to know about it. If you are thinking, this area really needs more retail, needs a better connection to public transit, that's the sort of information that we're really looking for. Or if you have a really big idea, some sort of commercial hub or some sort of I don't know, the sky's the limit. We're really just trying to tap into the community to see where those assets are, where those needed changes are. So we have this tool, and I'm going to share my screen really quickly. I believe I can do that. Yeah. So if you want to know more about the organization, you can always go to our website, which is designfortworth.org. You can scroll down and get all of the information that you need. We're actually working on a project in Poly Heights right now. And if you want more information about that, you can go to our website or even go to Black Coffee and see some of our boards there. We have a few founding partners here as well. I'm not going to go into that very much, but our projects and programs, this is our community vision for Fort Worth. We want you to show us, tell us, and stay involved. So this isn't your typical survey where you, answer step-by-step questions, maybe fill in some multiple choices. This is actually an interactive map that allows you to place with a pin what you love or where you want to change or your big ideas. And then the community can upvote that, they can comment on it. So we're really hoping to start discussions. I'm gonna go ahead and open that for you. So you can see here, this is what the tool looks like in the east side. There is a lot of love on the east side right now. So definitely an opportunity to go in and see what your neighbors are talking about. If you are interested, all you have to do is, let's say I really love, somebody already loved Black Coffee, but I'm gonna say I really love Ben's Triple B. So I just drop this here and say, this is a great restaurant. you can see that it's going to ask you just a little bit of demographic information. You can also attach a picture if you'd like. And whenever you post, it's going to ask me for conditions. Here we go. Now you see it here. I can also see, you know, somebody really loves black coffee. I think that that's a great thing too. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to say, I like that as well. You can also add to the discussion. Somebody already said, love the support of local small businesses. So we've seen a lot of feedback about public transportation access. We've seen feedback about parks and trails. What we're going to be doing with this information is after we've gathered this, we have a phase 1 stop of March 31st. So a very quick turnaround to try to hear from as many people as possible, at which time we're going to create a report and say, hey, this is what we're hearing from the community. Does that sound right to you? From there, we're actually going to be identifying opportunities for projects. So we may be looking for relationships with an association like the East Side Business Association to say, hey, how can we bring more businesses or really support the businesses over on the East Side? Maybe that we're working with an organization like United Way of Fort Worth to really dive in deep to a particular social issue. We don't know what that next phase is going to look like because we want to hear from the community like you about what you all think is important. So that's it in a very quick nutshell. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Okay, well, Rachel, that's a lot to take in, but really well presented very quickly. So thank you for jumping in with that. Does anybody have any questions?
Jason,
Just a comment.
Oh, Toby?
Thank you for being familiar with Ben's Triple B.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely, it's lovely.
Toby, you had something?
hi, Jason. Thank you so much. Just wanted to ask Rachel if she would elaborate a little bit. I found them online and we invited them over to William, James, and Polly, and the experience was amazing for our principals, and they've engaged our students. And Rachel, if you just talk a little bit about that, because I was so appreciative of that involvement and your rapid turnaround to make that happen.
Absolutely. And Toby, we were so excited to be able to finally connect with you as well. So as I said, we are actually doing a project in the Poly Heights neighborhood where we are working with the community to create a sort of master plan or a menu of possible options that the community might want to see in their part of town. We have been engaging with the neighborhood association, with several of the schools. We're in partnership with Texas Wesleyan University, and this has really been designed as a student project with the University of Texas at Arlington and their College of Architecture, Planning, and Design. So these students have actually been going out, interviewing members of the community, finding out what they love, what they want to change. There's been a whole a beautiful board process where they put down sticky notes. They've been asking about the history of this community. And right now there's a series of recommendations that are simply proposals. They're simply, hey, do you think this is what you want to see? Is this what you want to hear? And I'm going to share my screen again to show you what that is. So, and this is an example of a type of project that may come from the Community Vision Survey. We're focused on Poly right now. It could be a different area of town. Again, we're not exactly sure what that's going to look like. So we started this back in the fall of 2020 where we did a series of research. So we had a group of students at UTA. They were in the Spatial Injustice program who did a whole series of research about, who lives in Poly Heights, what's the history. We interviewed a group of people to see what they might want to see. And we now, in spring of 2021, have a landscape architecture group of students who have started to work on what this master plan could look like. Now, master plan sounds very prescriptive and as if they've already decided these are the things that we want to happen, but it's not. It's really just a question of, are these the kinds of things that you want to see in your community? Is this maybe where this could go? So again, on our website, designfortworth.org, you can go to projects, and go to the Poly Heights project. And down here, you can actually see the series of draft recommendations, and you can give your own feedback. So if you click on this, you can actually read a little bit of information and click on each of the boards to really dive in deep to what some of these recommendations are. And there's a online survey here. If you're more tactile and you like to look and feel and move things around, we will have other community meetings, and I'm happy to share that information with you all so that you all can attend. They will be online via Zoom, but we have ways of putting sticky notes on things and that sort of stuff. There's also printed out versions of these boards on the Texas Wesleyan University campus, as well as at Black Coffee, where you can actually put physical sticky notes down and say, yes, I like this, or no, I don't like that.
Rachel, I'm Wanda Conlin, and I sent you a donation. I was so impressed. I sent you a donation yesterday.
Oh, thank you so much. I saw that. Really nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Well, Rachel, this is, we talked for the first time this morning after I got an email from Rachel earlier this week, and she was Johnny on the spot, and she's got a board meeting here in about 5 minutes that she's going to be jumping into. And so thank you so much. This is very helpful, really opened my eyes. And any final comments?
Just thank you all so much for having me. I have posted a link to our community vision survey. It's also just our general website that you all can go to. I'm also posting my email if you all have any questions or want to follow up. Again, we are trying to hear from as many people as possible in Fort Worth at a very short period of time. So if you know of people who have big ideas for their community, or who are really excited about preserving something, or just want to share what they love about Fort Worth, please share this information with them so that we can hear from them too.
Great, great. And we'll commit that we're going to try to make sure East Fort Worth has more love shown on your map when we get to the end of March than any other part of the community, right?
Oh, fantastic.
Great. All right. Well, thanks so much, Rachel. Appreciate you being with us, and feel free to stick around as much as you can, but we know you've got that meeting as well. So
I'm going to go ahead and hop off. Really good to see you all. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. All right. Well, so little bonus there. Thanks for listening, and let's see what we can do to make sure we cover up East Fort Worth with all the good that we want to bring to their attention or new ideas. So with that, now it's time for Charles Hodges to bring us that very, very important door prize. Charles, what you got for us?
Happy to do it. And I'll add, I've already added a couple of things to the visioning tool yesterday when you sent it out. So I would encourage everybody to do the same. It's a fantastic tool that I think we can really share our vision of what we think we need, want, need, so forth. But on to more important things, the drawing for 2 different Mexican Inn $25 gift cards, right? So I have entered all of the names into our online random name picker. And so with a little fanfare, I've clicked the button. It's going to tell us who the first winner is, and it is, if it'll quit spinning for me, it is Gary Cumby.
All right.
So Gary Cumby gets the first card.
I think your thing is rigged.
Did Gary win it last month? I don't know.
If I won it last month, am I not eligible this month? I'm trying to remember if I won it last month.
These names were entered. These names were entered fresh today, so there is no carryover. I promise you. So we'll go for name number 2, and it is Elizabeth Matthew. And I see Elizabeth is still on down there. So how is it that we're getting those cards out? Are they dropping by the
It will be available at Quick Copy, 1850 Hanley Drive. Yes, and just
Until tomorrow.
not till, yes, tomorrow. I have to get the cards from our treasurer. So yes, Angela has those.
I'll pick up Gary's for him.
Are you gonna give it a test run?
I don't know, Gina. Let me think about that one a minute.
Gina's always
Gary Cumby is taking Dan's mantle of winning away from when Dan retired.
Well, when it rains, it pours. It just, I was in a drought for so long, and hey, now my luck is back.
I will say that no matter how many times I hit the pick a random name, did my name ever come up? I don't understand that. I guess I need to put it in there a few more times. But anyway, there you go. Back to you, Jason.
I suppose I could say like George Goebel said one time when he won an award, he said, "I really don't deserve this, but I've got athlete's foot, and I don't deserve that either." So I'm gonna take it.
Well, congratulations, Gary and Elizabeth. We're happy for you. Enjoy your Mexican Inn. Take a friend. And as we wrap up, I just remind everybody, next month, we'll have our mayoral forum. If I had to guess, I bet that will still be online, but we'll see. And if we're able to move it to in person.
I'm going to work on it. I'm going to work on it.
Communicate that. Thanks, Gary.
We're going to have all of them, Jason?
All that respond with the response to the questions. And I forget the number that Linda shared earlier, but we'll know that final count by tomorrow.
Yes, we've got 3 have responded. The others have not yet. So if they don't turn in their written response to the question, they won't be on the forum.
Yeah. So we can anticipate a longer meeting unless we only have 3 candidates, and then we might just have plenty of time with an hour. But be ready for possibly an extended meeting, because we want to make sure you guys get the best chance to become familiar with our candidates.
Can you share with us the names of the people that responded so we can maybe put pressure on the other ones to make them?
Oh, don't do that.
Well, on the mayor's race, it's Deborah Peoples, Brian Bird, and what's that guy's name? EC? Hold on.
I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Let me get to the desktop.
So yeah, I think the deadline's tomorrow. So I'm sure the other 8 will be Johnny on the spot this afternoon or tomorrow. But yeah, feel free to give him a nudge. I
call my friend.
What's that?
I'm gonna call Maddie, get her to respond.
Great. Okay. Oh, Linda, do you have that name?
I'm opening up the file. Daniel DC Caldwell.
Great. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody next month. Please pass the word. We want to have a big turnout for the candidates forum. So feel free to pass the word. Linda's put together a great plan with the help of Wanda and Mike Wisnan and Don. And so we've got a great meeting set for April 4th. So mark your calendars.
April 1st.
I'm sorry.
April 1st.
Thank you. April 1st. How fitting. Okay, everybody. Dr. Powderly, I'm not sure if she's still with us, but certainly that was great. Toby Jackson.
That was a wonderful program.
Yes, thank you, Gary. And Toby, I have a feeling anytime Powderly's involved, you've had something to do with it. So thank you for whatever role you played in helping us with that today. And of course, Don and Wanda for great programs. So with that, we are adjourned until April 1st. We'll see you in a few weeks. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
I just text Maddie.
Oh, good.
Have a good one.
Let's see. Brandon, are you still out there?
I am, Jason. I just I was having a hard time getting to the leave button.
Oh, well, I was gonna drop you an email earlier today and just didn't get to it. So was gonna touch base about the building. Any new on your side?
Nothing specific. I think, since Trey is gone, Randy's been pretty preoccupied, but I mean, everybody's still, wanting to move forward. So nothing, new in terms of questions or roadblocks or anything like that. So I think we'd probably be best to maybe just schedule a time to get together again and bring Randy into it, since he's now our attorney and the contract signator.
Randy's got an attorney background? I didn't know that.
Well, actually, Randy is an attorney. Quite like, yeah, he is. So, but with Trey gone, I think he was hoping we could replace Trey pretty quickly, but it's not as easy as you'd think just to hire an attorney. But he's been preoccupied, and I'll just share with you, he's been preoccupied with the Pafford expansion. We thought we were going to rent some space over at LeGrand Plaza, but that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of changed a little bit because the city of Fort Worth told us that in order for us to permit that for children, because it was previously permitted for adults to attend technical school, that we would have to do a number of upgrades. And I think they've been working through how much that potentially would cost. And I don't know that it's going to be viable for us to do that. So he's, working on plan B, C, and D and trying to do it quickly, because we need to know where we're going with that piece of property. But anyway, I definitely don't want to hold things up for you. So I think what would be best is if we just put some time on Randy's calendar, and then that way we kind of present him with what we have as far as we've gotten, and then get some input from him as to what else we need to do to bring it to the finish line.
Great. Yeah, and I certainly appreciate LeGrand Plaza is a much bigger fish to fry than our little project. So.
No, it's just as important. I mean,
I really don't think it is.
No, it is. I think. I mean, I actually enjoyed watching or listening to the design community presentation. I didn't realize that existed, and I think once we get the agreement signed, we'll drop a whole lot of love on the Magnolia campus and promote that for the east side of Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, I just got a call this morning from Kaboom asking me if they could stick a sports court somewhere on the property there, which would be kind of cool. Maybe in the parking lot or something. But yeah, I mean, the more we do for the community, the more people want to help in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a positive.
Fantastic.
Positive thing. Yeah.
Well, so two questions real quick then would be, one, as far as Randy, do you feel like there's any things that we need to put more of a point on before pulling him in?
I mean, he generally knows what we're looking to do. I think, the remaining couple outstanding questions or points are just the amount of time, how to address that in the agreement, and then actually that's probably the biggest one, right?
Term and rent.
Yeah. And the rent thing I don't think is that big of a deal, but I mean it is probably to you, but to us, we're not in it for the money.
Sure. But in one kind of side note, I'm going to forget my second thing, but this is a third thing. I don't know that Meryl shared. We just learned that we got the CCPD grant.
Oh, did you? Congratulations.
Right. We're still waiting to find the final amount, but we assume it's somewhere close to the number we asked for. And so that's for that community manager. And I forget the person who from Trinity Basin who went with Merrill to make that presentation a couple weeks ago, but we got it.
That's fantastic. I'll use that as my lead in to barge into Randy's office. And I mean, he's always good for positive news. But you never really know what his attitude is when he comes, because all the problems he's dealing with right now on the, with Trey gone. But yeah, that'd be a great thing for me to just kind of go in there and nail him down on a time or a couple times, maybe in the next, few days, maybe early next week. Does your calendar look okay for that?
Yeah. Mondays are pretty bad, but otherwise,
all right, so like
I'm fairly open. And speaking of nailing down a time, I want to get my real estate committee to visit the building.
Okay.
What is it? Is there a general? Is it better to do that after school hours, or does it matter, or any kind of preferences so I can kind of narrow them down?
Well, if you want to see it if they want to see it in use with students in it, we can do it during school hours. I would say we should avoid pickup and drop off times, because that would maybe be frustrating for some people. But yeah, we can do it anytime you want. It's fine. So
okay.
You decide, how you want to show it to them. Empty, I guess, obviously you'd be able to walk through the whole thing and, show them everything.
I think we'd probably do it empty.
Yeah.
Just easier on everybody. So, and empty starts around and pickup is over by what time?
So they're, I think, done by 3:45-ish. I'll have to double check, but so probably anytime after 4 would be safe.
Great. Okay. And the construction is still tracking well, as far as you know?
It is. They of course had some issues with the weather during the week that we were all stuck at home, but from what Randy told me, that they're still projecting the same target end date, so nothing has changed in terms of that. Short of we get an abnormally really wet spring, but by then we should be fine from the weather anyway, because they'll be able to be inside the building and working inside as opposed to open to the elements. So I think we're past the main part of being impacted by weather too significantly. Assuming we don't get any more winter storms like
yeah. We're more likely to have a drought, I think, than another winter storm.
Right.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thanks for letting me catch you for a few minutes here. Good luck with LeGrand. That's a big kink.
Yeah. We've got a couple other good options, but they're not, anywhere near as far along as that one was. So we'll hope for the best.
Yeah. Great. Well, I can't imagine what I can do to help, but if there's something I can do, just let me know.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, well, thank you, Jason. I will I'll touch base with Randy right now and see what his schedule looks like for next week.
Sounds great. Okay. Thanks so much, Brandon.